Iraq, and the alliance led by this man, the Shia cleric Muktada Al Sader, is looking likely to win the elections in Iraq. Reports show Al Sader's alliance won more than 1.3 million votes, and that translates to the greatest share of seats in parliament, with some votes still to be counted. Now, Iran-backed Shia militia chief Hadya al-Amiri's coalition is second, while the Prime Minister Hadya al-Abadi's coalition, once seen as the front-runner, came in third. Now, Al Sader has spearheaded fights against US troops and campaigned against Iranian influence. And put simply, he believes Iraqis should run Iraqi affairs, not Washington, not Tehran, and not their proxies. So where does this election leave Iraq? I spoke to Hadya Alawi from BBC Arabic.
I mean, this was probably an unexpected result for many Iraqis. Although Muktada Al Sader is a very popular Shia cleric in Iraq, he wasn't really expected to win this election. Probably the bids were going towards Hadya al-Abadi, the current prime minister, especially after all the conflict that he actually managed to get Iraq out of with IS. So this is quite a change on the scene, the political scene, but it also shows that Iraqis are quite fed up with this system and the way it's working right now, the government, the corruption, I mean, having all these problems not solved 15 years on after the war started in 2003.
And Muktada Al Sader was quite a name in the headlines a decade or so ago. I mean, just tell us about him. What does he stand for?
Yeah, well, Muktada Al Sader, as I mentioned, he's a populist Shia cleric, and he has always been against the US, what he calls a US occupation of Iraq. He's also against Iran, so he's been running on the lines of, anti-corruption of the government, but also anti-Iran line during this campaign.
You mentioned that he was, although he's a Shia cleric, not in favour of Iranian influence. This is something he's actually campaigned against.
Yeah, that's very true. So unlike other, alliances who have been quite influenced by Iran, such as Hadya al-Amiri's bloc, Muktada Al Sader ran a completely different campaign against Iran. So we saw after, the initial results came out that he had won the majority of voices or votes, that a lot of his supporters were very happy. I don't know if you remember, but in the last few years, there's been a lot of demonstrations in Iraq, especially in Baghdad. The majority of the power behind these demonstrations was Muktada Al Sader and his supporters. Most of his supporters were the ones going out on demonstrations against the government. So I think, although I see it as quite a shock result, I think it's an oversight by many people, including myself and a lot of other people who look at these results as something completely unexpected. It's not completely unexpected because he's a very popular Shia cleric, and although he fought against the United States since 2003, he's had a sort of like a reform and a change, and now he's come back with a new brand that he's trying to just be there for the Iraqis.
Hadya Al-Alawi from BBC.